What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Summer Cup Ultra League Edition once again, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today is Lapras, Virizion, and Whimsicott. I've already showcased all three of these Pokemon on this channel, but the main thing I wanted to talk about today is cheaters in GBL. There seems to be an increase in people that are abusing bugs in the game or just straight up cheating, and I wanted to try to bring a little bit of light to that. Before we hop into the video, special thank you to Big Burden as the first member on this channel. So without further ado, let's hop into some battles. There is only one battle in here, and I will point it out, that has the cheater. But into the first match, we have a decent lead with Lapras into Tentacruel. The reason I say decent is because most Tentacruel are on Sludge Wave in this cup. And Lapras, while it has super effective Psywaves, has no charge move pressure into the Tentacruel. So a Sludge Wave lands. Here comes a Sparkling Aria. That does some okay chip. I'm going to overfarm a little bit, go for another Sparkling Aria. And Sparkling Aria from this range, we'll put it into the red, going for the Psywave down. And unable to get it, my opponent makes another Sludge Wave. That's fine. They live with like a few HP. So here comes the double kick farm down from the Virizion, and in comes a Golisopod. So because we got that double kick farm down, we are able to get a slight energy lead and outpace to the Stone Edge, but my opponent does get the shield call correct, and here comes an X-Scissor. I do want to try and grab both shields from my opponent before I switch into my Whimsicott. Here comes the second charge move from the opponent, and I will just shield this up. X-Scissor will get shielded. Here comes another super effective Stone Edge. My opponent, are they willing to commit the double shield? They are. So at this point, I'm going to throw two more double kicks, and then I'm going to pivot into my Whimsicott, trying to get a catch there, but I'm unsuccessful. But that's okay. We can now get to a Grass Knot, and from this range, it will probably nearly KO. But my opponent probably will just grab that final shield and then pivot, and they do, but it's a Bellibolt in the back. Bellibolt will instantly be met by a Moonblast from the Whimsicott, and they are completely walled here. And because they haven't buffed their defense yet, that actually does quite a bit of damage. They get to the Parabolic Charge. I end up just only settling for a Grass Knot here, and then going for a slight undercharge. And the reason I do that is so that way I can pivot into my Virizion, get the double kick farm down, come out with a Stone Edge loaded, and Stone Edge from this range picks up the knockout on the Golisopod, and we are able to take that win. Undercharge coming in clutch and going for the Grass Knot there. Into next match, we've got Galvantula on the lead. This is another terrible lead for this team, but this one is on Fury Cutter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a discharged catch onto my Virizion, but my opponent ended up baiting with a lunge, which is super unfortunate, and then they come in with Kingdra. And the unfortunate part here is we would love to have Kingdra on our Whimsicott because they would be completely walled, but unfortunately that is not the case. Can I make it to a Stone Edge? My opponent decides to throw their energy before I get there, but if it's an Octazooka, I will live this. Octazooka is a bad move, but I'm one Dragon Breath range away, so it ends up picking up the knockout, and we don't connect with that Stone Edge, but that's fine. That actually just gives us more farm on the Whimsicott, and we come out loaded with energy. Octazooka is resisted there, even though it kind of looks like a poison type move. We get the full farm down with Fairy Wind, come out loaded with energy, 100 energy here on the Whimsicott. Are they going to come back in with the Galvantula? They are. That's kind of interesting because now they're going to be met with a Moonblast, and they have not lowered our attack yet. And I'm actually going to be able to outpace, make it to a second Moonblast, and Galvantula is glassy, so this will do sizable damage. Oh my goodness, it one-shots. And they have Bellibolt in the back. Bellibolt going to be met with a Grass Knot. I think I can make it to 2 moves if I go for a Grass Knot here, and I'm expecting my opponent to shield to buff their defense. That's exactly what happens. They end up throwing their energy, and you know what, at this point I have 2 shields and a Lapras, so you know what, I'm just going to let this go. We force them to throw their energy. Here comes a Sparkling Aria. They've only boosted their defense once, so this will still do some okay chip, and now they're going to start boosting their defense even more with the super effective Parabolic Charge. I could live one, but why should I when I have 2 shields? Here comes another Sparkling Aria their way, and my opponent now has to make it to back-to-back moves before I'm even able to get to another Sparkling Aria, and they know that, which is why you see them overfarming. But now here comes a Sparkling Aria, and Sparkling Aria from this range will pick up the knockout, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we have Lapras into Golisopod. This is actually a neutral lead, believe it or not. Even though they have neutral Shadow Claws and X Scissors, and we have completely resisted Charge Moves, it's like a tie, basically, in the zeros. It's very strange. Either way, actually, my opponent ends up being on Aerial Ace here, so that's actually even better for us because it's non-stab and doesn't do that much damage. So, yeah, if you notice, our Sparkling Aria did about as much damage as their Aerial Ace here, which is kind of crazy. Maybe more? That's just ridiculous. Especially with Golisopod being more attack weighted, but Lapras is just so bulky, and Sparkling Aura is such a good move. It's nearly a Hydroganic clone, not quite. They're going to make a final move, but that's actually fine. We can live this and get the full Psywave farm down, come out loaded with energy for whatever is in the back. It's a Virizion. Here comes a super effective Ice Beam their way, and you know what? I'm just going to stay in this matchup, let them get the double kick farm down, whether they shield it or not, because I have Whimsicott, and Whimsicott is a complete wall. My opponent ends up not even building out to the Stone Edge, so I know this can only be a Leaf Blade or a Sacred Sword, so I will let this go. And it's a Swampert in the back, so they are absolutely core broken by the Whimsicott in the back. So here comes a super effective Grass Knot. They shield that up. In comes the Virizion, and my opponent just resigns the match. Yeah, not much they could do there after winning that switch, or not really, just having Whimsicott in the back. Tough lead in the next match. We've got an Electivire, which of course has super effective Ice Punch for both of my Pokemon in the back, and super effective Thundershock and Wild Charge for my lead. So when I pivot into my Virizion, I'm actually thrilled that they do not throw their energy and instead come in with a Virizion of their own, which I believe is a misplay because now they're down on energy, and they have no chance to flip this matchup if I want switch. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Sure, they make it to another move, but I can live this. And a Sacred Sword coming their way will be able to pick up the knockout here unless my opponent commits a shield. What do they decide to do? They decide to let that go and give me switch, which is nice. But in comes a Kingdra. I'm unable to make another move, and at this point I have to align my Whimsicott here because they are completely walled. And I can take whatever charge move. And then if they come in with Electivire, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pivot into my Lapras. And that may seem strange, giving my opponent the alignment with the Electivire on my Lapras, but my attack was debuffed severely on my Whimsicott. And they have to full send a Wild Charge here if they want to do any meaningful damage, which is why you saw me over-farming there, because if they threw a Wild Charge, I would live it, and then I'd be able to connect with a Sparkling Aria. This time I will actually respect it because I'm in range for a Wild Charge. They actually do full send it there, but now here comes the Sparkling Aria, able to grab both shields from my opponent, and now all I have to do is snipe with the Whimsicott. Here comes a Grass Knot. This is neutral damage, but Electivire is glassy. It picks up the knockout, and now we have our Whimsicott on a Kingdra. My opponent no longer has a win con, so they just resign the match. Tough lead in the next match. These grass poisons are tough, but what we do in these matchups is we actually just stay in with the Lapras, because Lapras, it has super effective Psywaves, so we're actually doing more damage with our fast move than our opponent, and these Ice Beams are super effective damage, so my opponent has to either call a bait or match shields in this matchup. They do end up matching shields. That's fine. I'm going to commit both shields in this matchup and then just try and look for a catch out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a Sparkling Aria now because they are in Sparkling Aria range. They will not be able to make it to another move. Even if they call this, I'll get the Psywave farm down. That's exactly what happens. And then we come out low with energy. They do end up coming in with the Credilli, but Credilli is going to be completely walled by the Virizion. So all I have to do is stay in this matchup, go for the Ice Beams, force my opponent to throw their energy, and they end up throwing on really good timing right before I get to my next charge move, the Sparkling Aria. They pick up the knockout with the Rock Tomb, but in comes Virizion, and suddenly, even though I did get one turn lag, what turns into a good energy lead on Credilli is completely wasted by the Virizion because they are completely walled. And the fact that my opponent is not switching out of this matchup, which is maybe the worst matchup for Credilli in this meta, clues me into the fact that they are weak to Virizion in the back. I'm guessing it's either a Mudboy or Bellibolt, and either way, that is a good situation to be in when you have Whimsicott in the back. Whimsicott, of course, would have play into both of those. What's it going to be? It's going to be a Blastoise, so not exactly what I had in mind, but still not a good matchup for them because we have super effective Grass Knot. That'll connect, That does huge damage to the Shadow Blastoise. They are farming to eternity here. Maybe just going for an Ice Beam. Maybe they're at the back-to-back Ice Beams, but no, they're just running Skull Bash. And as soon as that doesn't KO, my opponent knows they no longer have a win con, so they'll just resign the match. Into next match, we have a Lickilicky on the lead. This is a little bit of a tough lead for us, but I am just going to stay in this matchup, and now I'm going to go for the Sparkling Aria right as they make it to the potential Solar Beam. Sparkling Aria connects, and my opponent throws right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the shield, and now I'm going to go for another Sparkling Aria. It is just the Shadow Ball, so I'm more confident in letting the next one go, just because obviously we've seen their nuke move. It's a Shadow Ball. They're very unlikely to be on Shadow Ball and Solar Beam, so I will let the next one go. And it's a Decidueye in the back, so here comes an Ice Beam. I end up throwing on very suboptimal timing onto the CMP tie, but I know Spirit Shackle actually will not KO from this range, so I let that go. And now here comes a super effective Ice Beam from the Lapras, and that actually gives us a 0-turn switch, which is kind of nice. All we have to do is let this go. Spirit Shackle is very survivable from the Whimsicott, and I am just going to overfarm here. Going to go for the Moonblast. Moonblast will do massive damage to the Decidueye. Decidueye will actually commit the shield and then pivot into a Typhlosion. Of course, my switch timer is not yet up, and this is going to be a difficult matchup to close out, but that connects that Moonblast and actually does almost 50%, and that is a non-shadow right there, which is crazy. My opponent ends up not throwing, so I'm just going to go for the Sacred Sword. This will get them pretty low, will not be enough to KO, but they'll be in Psywave farm down range, so I actually pivot into my Lapras, knowing I can Psywave them down before they get the Incinerate farm down, so that forces them to throw their energy, which means this can only be another Thunder Punch, so I can let this go. That double kick will go through, and it will KO, and now we have neutralized the Fire type in the back, but in comes Decidueye. Can we make it to the Stone Edge? The answer looks like yes. I was watching for a catch there. My opponent ends up not going for the charge move. I'm going to click the move. Can we survive another Spirit Shackle, or did we overfarm and cost this matchup? We live on 1 HP, and now we should be one move away from the Sacred Sword, and we are. Rollout goes through, but it does not pick up the knockout. That is resisted damage. Sacred Sword picks up the knockout on the Lickilicky, and we were just barely able to take a win. Here's the cheater, by the way. So enjoy this long drawn-out matchup, and you're going to see what I mean. So first of all, they're just on Ice Fang Suicune. Doesn't seem particularly bad, but in comes a Blissey. So obviously, alarm bells are now going off. Suicune, already a bulky Pokemon, but Blissey is unbelievably bulky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch into my Virizion, and I'm going to overfarm pretty significantly here. I know that the worst charge move they could have for me here is Psychic. And of course their fast move is super effective, Zen Headbutt, but it doesn't do that much damage. And you're going to notice every single time a charge move is thrown in this matchup, there's a really long pause. And you see that right here. And this happened, I mean, this is sped up. So we know that these are even longer in person, or like at normal speed. And there is a way to do this. There is an intentional way where if you like kind of not like fully close your app, but if you like minimize it just for a little bit in the middle of the charge move and then come back, it will do this. And my opponent is using that to their advantage every single time a charge move is thrown, whether that be from me or from them, and they're using like they're going for a timeout strategy basically. Fortunately, I was aware of this immediately when I noticed the first two Pokemon, which is why you saw me catch onto my Lapras, anticipating the pivot back into their Suicune. And now we're connecting with a lot of damage. In comes their Virizion. I make a mistake here. I should have come in with my Whimsicott, but I knew I had energy on my Virizion, so I could always burn the switch timer. And I know I have a like a health advantage so far in this matchup because my Lapras is more healthy than the Suicune. And all I have to do is make sure that I keep all three Pokemon in play, which is kind of strange to the fact that I'm just letting this go. But they're on Thundershock, so they don't have that much fast food pressure, and you're actually going to see me shield this because if my opponent has 3 charge moves, I mean 3 Pokemon, and I have 2 when the switch or when the clock timer goes down, then my opponent will actually be granted the win. So I have to actually save health on my Virizion in what seems like a matchup that makes no sense. But they also have enough for a Zap Cannon here, so I will respect this damage. It is the Zap Cannon. That is a huge shield call. Now I just have to watch for the catch. They do not go for it, so I'm going to throw my Moonblast on the Sandpitai. This will do some pretty sizable damage to the Bellibolt. Bellibolt is trying to burn that switch, or burn the match timer down there. Here comes a Parabolic Charge. I think they realize what's happening. I anticipate the switch once again, able to get the catch onto my Lapras. It is, what's it going to be? Just another Scald, and my opponent has to just take that L because the switch timer went completely down. That was a 5-minute match, but we are able to take that win. So just be aware that there are people out there doing that. I did show his name at the beginning of the video for that reason, because I wanted to expose him. So if you run into that player, just, you know what to expect. Keep all 3 Pokemon alive. Spam out your charge move. Make sure you're distributing health pretty well between the 3 of them, and you can be in a pretty solid spot. Here comes a Sacred Sword to a Porygon. Fortunately, they are not on Blizzard. I believe this one learns Blizzard. I'm at the back-to-back moves. I click the move. My opponent is also at a charge move already, so they're going to actually throw the Tri-Attack right away. Tri-Attack does some okay damage. I'm now going to go for an undercharge here. That way I can get the double kick farm down, and we are able to get that. But in comes a Tentacruel, and suddenly this matchup doesn't look quite as good. It looks like I'm not able to get to the Stone Edge, so we just have to settle for the Sacred Sword chip, and then they come back in with the Heliolisk. But the problem with Heliolisk is they are completely walled here. Breaking Swipe, Parabolic Charge, Grass Knot, whatever they want to run is walled, and their Mud Slap is also walled, so I'm just going to go for Grass Knot. Of course, Heliolisk is extremely glassy, so this is a very dominant matchup for the Whimsicott. I'm able to make it to back-to-back charge moves before they're able to make it to another Parabolic Charge, and Grass Knot from this range will put them in the red, and as soon as it puts them in the red, I know this game is over, because all I have to do is get this High Wave farm down, so I'm instantly queuing that switch, and that actually causes them to switch. I'm not sure where their energy is at, so I will respect a potential Sludge Wave here. It is just the Scald. But now here comes the Sparkling Aria spam from the Lapras. There's one. Here comes a second Sparkling Aria after a little bit of overfarm. Do they have enough for a Sludge Wave? I think I have to let this go because they're close to a Parabolic Charge on their Heliolisk either way. So here comes another Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria will not be enough to pick up the knockout, but we actually do grab a shield in this matchup. So now here comes another Sparkling Aria from the Lapras. This will connect, do some OK chip. I try and get a catch onto my Whimsicott, and I'm unsuccessful, but we're able to get the full Fairy Wind farm down on the Helios, come out with a move loaded. My opponent knows they no longer have a win con, so they resign the match, and into the final match of the video, we have Lapras into Bellibolt. This is a pretty tough lead, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch and make the catch of the Parabolic Charge onto my Virizion where it is resisted. Parabolic Charge does connect, but we actually lure out a Skeleturge, and this is exactly what this save switch is meant to do, and this is why we're running Stone Edge on the Virizion. That hits for massive super effective damage, and it forces my opponent to throw their energy, or else I'd make it to another charge move. So they have to go for the Torch Song here, they have to fully charge it in order to pick up the knockout, and I already have the Sparkling Aria pretty much loaded, so I can just pick up the knockout, and we've basically wasted all of the energy of the Bellibolt, and the advantage that they gain from throwing the Parabolic Charge. So I'm going to do the exact same thing on my Whimsicott, where it's resisted as well. Just completely neutralizing this energy from the Bellibolt, and now I have another Sparkling Aria loaded onto my Lapras. My opponent ends up staying in this matchup, throwing on the CMP tie, winning the CMP tie, which is fine. Oh, I guess not. Somehow I got one turn lag, but as soon as that connects, they just resign the match, and we are able to take that win. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of bring attention. I'm showcasing the exact same Pokemon I've been showcasing already, so there's nothing new there. It was more just the fact that I wanted to bring light to the fact that there are cheaters in this meta. I wanted to expose his name, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.